go. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Virtual Physiatry Mentors. I'm Dr. Sheena Bhuva.
I'm Dr. Benecia Williams.
And together we are Benecia.
That's how we start every time.
And I still interrupted.
It's okay.
It's all part of it. So, well, welcome. So we have a great guest today, Dr. Dr Dalton. She's here, and we're going to be talking about something that we didn't really get much exposure to in residency, but hear about it more now that we're practicing. We have a couple of people that we know that do it themselves, and it's Locum Tenens physician, and kind of what that means and how to get involved and the pros and cons about all of that. So it should be very exciting. So thanks so much for joining us, Dr. Dalton.
Thanks for having me.
We're so happy to have you. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, your education, how you were introduced to PM&R as well.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Oklahoma City. My dad's a plastic surgeon. I actually started out at Duke. I was a joke. I was the third generation to go to Duke, is what my mom likes to say. I point out I'm third generation not to graduate. Transferred to Reed College, where I was going to major in biology, and instead got a Russian degree. And then went to med school. Part of that was I actually have complex regional pain syndrome that I got back when I was 13. So I didn't think I could go to med school at one point because my health wasn't doing great. And so I was like, well, then let's major in something else. Things got better. So I went to med school back home in Oklahoma, actually lived with my parents, and then went on, did my surgical internship. Really loved surgery, but didn't know if I could do it with my arm. Really couldn't. So got into physiatry. I had extremely little exposure before residency. After my first month of internship, I was with a very good friend of ours who's an internist, and he said, you know, I'd consider physiatry if I were you. And he told me a little about it. And I spent 2 half days with a physiatrist and applied to residency. Here I am.
Nice. I think you're our second guest who actually heard about it and decided to do physiatry during their intern here. Our last guest, Dr. Bandari, did the same thing. So very neat. So going into a little bit more detail about how you got to where you are. So you sent us your CV, and I saw that you graduated residency at University of Arkansas. You went there, and then right after that you went in where you're attending physician at University of Massachusetts. Is that correct?
No, I was at Sinai at Baltimore. UMass rated my fellowship.
Yeah,
there's a lot on there.
And practiced there for a little bit, but then decided to do like a stint where you did locums in New Zealand for a few months, and then started PM&R interventional spine fellowship. So tell us a little bit about how all that happened.
Yeah, so I am, again, with having the CRPS, I was actually a patient of Dr. Gabor Rax, who's known as the grandfather of pain management. And so I was interested in that. Wasn't so interested in the opiate management side of things, and really just wanted to do more of the procedural end and the other treatment options that we have. I certainly didn't want to just do procedures and nothing else. So again, I was having issues with my arm. My senior year of residency, I had a surgery where they took out a really large neuroma, and turns out that my hand worked better after that. But I'd already chosen to go work as an attending and did that for a while. And that job at Sinai was, I swear, the best first job you could have. They really sort of let me do what I wanted and explore things. And if there wasn't something I really enjoyed doing, I would take on another project to limit the one I didn't like so much. And they were really supportive. I then decided, though, that I wanted to do the fellowship. And so I applied to that and was accepted, and decided that in the meantime, I was going to go to New Zealand for a little bit. So I did. I was really lucky. They normally want you 6 months to a year, but they had, in the rehab capital of New Zealand, their doctor had taken a medical leave. And so they needed someone kind of desperately, and took me for the 3 months until fellowship. So kind of worked out for both of us.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
How did you hear about that, that opportunity? How?
I was already looking into doing a little bit of locums in between leaving Sinai and starting fellowship. And I actually was going to Azerbaijan, and I had the interview, I think, the day before I left for Azerbaijan. My sister was living there and I was going to visit. But so they called me and like, we've got this opportunity. And it was great.
Cool.
That is so cool.
Yeah, coming back was really hard. And then going into fellowship after being an attendant was quite a shock.
Yeah, now that kind of leads me to my next question is, what kind of practice did you join after your fellowship? And when did you decide to focus on locum tenens?
So I had gone to college out in Portland, Oregon, and kept wanting to get back out there. And I had a couple different offers out there, and I took one that seemed like it was going to be a great fit. I was going to do some inpatient, some outpatient, no opiate management, and interventional. After I accepted the job, the chief left and went to Arizona. And so there was a lot of flux. And then, as often happens in medicine, there was the turf war of who was going to get to do the procedures, me or anesthesia. So I was doing 0 procedures. And so they kept wanting me to do the opiate management I didn't want to do. And it just wasn't the right fit. So I left and did some locums, and initially did a little bit of locums while kind of looking at other things, and then just realized this works for me. I joke I have job ADD, so I can go somewhere short term, and then sometimes I go back to the same places. Sometimes I go there once and work a little bit and then move on. Get to see all sorts of parts of the country, different practices, work with some great people.
Yeah, looking at your CV, you've literally been all over the country.
I have 12 active licenses right now.
That is
wow.
amazing.
I've had a total of 20.
At one point.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, that's amazing.
So for those who may be watching, so it's mostly our audience is medical students and residents. Can you go into like what exactly is locums? How does it work? You work with an organization and they assign you, and do you have any flexibility in choosing locations and any of that kind of stuff?
So yeah, I mean, locum tenens technically means placeholder. What we do is we go fill in where they need help. Sometimes it might be a medical leave. It might be that they've got a doc retiring, or they've got someone who's moved on and they're looking to fill their next spot. Sometimes they've just realized that they're working to expand a program and they need some help while they're finding their new permanent doc. So sort of whatever they need, whatever the reason is they have a need, I go in and help. It's really flexible. I try and work about 26 weeks a year. This year I've actually worked more because of COVID, but which is interesting because a lot of people have lost work for locums during COVID. But part of it is my flexibility. If you're really flexible, you can do a lot of stuff. I prefer to work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. I worked 14 out of 16 weeks straight this summer, and then had 3 weeks off before I'm back on an assignment for 3 weeks. And then I'll go back to my 2 on, 2 off to the end of the year. So I have a bunch of different recruiters from, I kind of have more agents than most, and there are a lot of different companies, and I feel like I have a recruiter with almost all of them, although I have a handful that are the ones I work with more. So I'll get presented a job, and they'll tell me where it is and what they're looking for and what rate they're going to pay me to go. And if I'm interested, I submit my CV, and if they're interested, I'll have a phone interview usually, although a few places don't do that. They're just like, come on. And we set up an agreement on what dates I'll work, and I go. And the contracts are very flexible. Each of us can give 30 days notice if it doesn't work, or if it's just time to do something else. A lot of places are really great places. That just, usually it's a smaller town, or not, say, a desirable part of the country that people are rushing to get to. And so it's just going to take them longer to find the right doc to fill in, to find it. And so usually it's just a different way to see things. Some places I go, it's kind of like a working vacation. I spent the summer in Newport, Rhode Island. Never thought I'd spend a summer in Newport, Rhode Island, and there I got to spend it working. But even that was like 8 to 5. So I had a lot of free time. Sometimes I actually have been able to work in my hometown some, so I'd actually stay with my parents, and I worked at the hospital where I was born.
Cool.
And so right now I'm in rural West Virginia, and I just kind of go where they need me. And
no, that is such a very cool opportunity. Have you ever done, these are my own questions, so I'm curious. Have you ever done a job and you're like, this is not for me, or been somewhere like, I really, really like this, I would consider staying longer than your contractor?
Yeah, there was actually one job I had where I loved the town, but the unit and the hospital was pretty toxic. And so I was like, well, this is really a shame, because this is a great place, except for the work part. And I've had other places where I've thought, I could totally see being here. And one of the nice things about locums is that because they are looking for a need, lots of times there is the option to switch it to a permanent position. There are a few places that have wanted me to do that, including that one that was so toxic, but that was not going to be for me. But some of these places I love going back to, but again, I like the flexibility and the change. And so sometimes it's nice to be there, and then I'm ready to get away, and then I'm excited to go back.
Yeah.
So since these are, more short-term assignments in that sense, do you get like any other benefits like 401k? You have to pay for your own health insurance?
So I have to pay my own health insurance, my own retirement. They pay my malpractice. They pay for my hotel, my travel, my rental car. I pay for my own food and entertainment and gas, but those are actually business expenses for the food and gas. So it's pretty low overhead. My licenses I pay for, and they reimburse me if I do a job. In better years, not this year, some companies would go ahead and reimburse me for the license anyway, because they were worried I would let it expire, because I've let some of them expire, and they're like, but you need it again. We want you to have it. And so they might just go ahead and cover it for me. But not right now. I actually had one company go ahead and pay for me to get a California license, because it's supposed to take so long to get a California license. You can't apply to California assignments without it. Magically, I got that license in 6 weeks when I've been told it would be over 8 months. So
sounds like Texas, trying to get a Texas medical license.
But I also am a pro at getting licenses. I think that was my 3rd one that year, and it was like May.
Right. Are you, for your license, are you using like a universal system? I know that you can use for a lot of different states, or you just have everything ready to go?
So I use the FCVS that has a lot of it. I have to get fingerprinted for most of the states. It's kind of funny because I go use the live scan. I have a couple fingers that are really hard to fingerprint, so I have to go to the live scan. And they know me well enough at the sheriff's office that they're like, oh, you need that lotion for your hands. Or sometimes I've gone so recently that my fingerprints are still in the system from the last time, and they're just like, hand us the card, we'll print them. We don't need
Oh, perfect. Right.
But I'm like, yeah, I know where to go to get fingerprinted a lot. They know me there, and I'm not in trouble.
Are most of the positions you're filling, because we have such a diverse field of physiatry, and we talk about, including my own practice is very diverse, and you're interventional trained. Do you do only inpatient rehab, or are you doing a bunch of different types of things you're filling in for locum?
So I do mainly inpatient, outpatient, and EMG. Most of the companies, but not all, will have a requirement that if you haven't done something in 2 years, they won't submit you. Other companies are like, no, if you've done it, we're fine, we'll submit you. So this year I've done 4 inpatient assignments, I think, and 2 outpatient, both of which were mainly EMG. In fact, one was supposed to be sort of a mix of outpatient, but they were really backed up on EMG. They were like 10 months backed up. And so I was like, you know what you really need me to do is the EMG. So let's just book days of that. And so they're like, that's great. Thanks.
See, guys, more reason to do EMGs. I'm not on the EMG, but I'm the EMG cheerleader. So
right by your side.
Yes,
so
I will hear you.
Yeah. So how does being, you mentioned they send you the contract and they have, whatever rate they're paying you. So is that how you get paid? Like you get paid a certain amount for the time you're there, or does it depend on how many patients you see? And is there any negotiation with that depending on location and that?
So it's an hourly rate. Usually the deal is that for the first 8 hours, I'll get paid a lump sum of the, X times 8. Then after that, there's usually an overtime rate plus a call rate. There's a holiday pay rate, which is usually 1.5 times the regular rate. So I work a lot of holidays. Then I can try and negotiate. It's a little difficult. One of the more well-established companies that's paying a lot less than other people, that I've worked with them a lot, and the recruiter is like, now you're going with other people, and I'm like, because it doesn't financially make sense for me to work with you. So she this week was like, can you send me a bunch of your other contracts, because I'm going to argue with our company why we need to up our rates. So there are some rates I just say I'm absolutely not working for that. There are some that are so low I'm like, you must be kidding me.
This is a joke, right?
You know, if it's a small unit, you probably are going to get paid less. If you're busier, you're going to get paid more. Especially, you know, some places like my current assignment, they had told me before I got here, they're like, most docs have been making about 9 to 12 hours overtime a week. They're fine with that. And so if you want to work those extra 12 hours a week, you can do quite well for yourself. I have probably been working 5 to 10 hours overtime so far. I've only been here 2 weeks so far. Although it's also really important to be efficient, because a lot of these places do not want to pay a penny overtime. I mean, it's expensive to hire in a doc to come out from out of town. And so they want to pay you for the 8 hours and nothing more. And so efficiency is actually really important. If you're billing a lot of overtime, they may not have you come anymore.
Right. I'm sure you've gotten to know a lot of EMR systems then across the country. What are some of the challenges other than getting to know new people and new unit, but what other kind of challenges have you faced doing?
So EMRs, I mean, I'm the right age for that. I'm 45. So, you know, I had a computer in my house from first grade, I think.
Oregon Trail.
And so, you know, you sort of learn to use the different systems. And I joke I'm using Cerner right now, and they asked me something because something was acting up, and I'm like, I've been using Cerner since 2004. I know how to use it. Thank you.
You're like, I'm a professional. Thank you.
Or, you know, and every place is slightly different. I'd say of all the systems I use, Epic is the best. They all have their pluses and minuses, but that one is the easiest to work with, in my opinion. So that, you know, some places, usually I do pretty well with just sort of hopping in and working. I know not everyone can do that. When I was in Newport this summer, I laughed. My recruiter was like, hey, so are you making a lot of friends? I was like, it's COVID. No.
I gotta work, right?
Not at all.
Go to work.
I will say usually pre-COVID, I would go eat dinner in a bar, because usually people sitting at the bar are social. And so you have friends for the night. And sometimes sometimes they'll be like, hey, we're here every Sunday night. Come join us for dinner next week. Or, hey, give us a call if you have any questions. And, you know, you just sort of do your thing. Where I am right now is not doing a good job of masking. So I'm really in my hotel room a lot. And it just is what it is.
Yep, it is what it is. Sorry, I have all these questions. I'm just so curious. Do you dictate, like Sheena and I are big fans of using a Dragon dictation, and we were trying to talk to our other friend about it just to try to be efficient, because you mentioned efficiency is very key. Because a lot of people I know, they go to work and they come home and they're having to do notes. I'm like, I'm not leaving my office until my notes are done, but I dictate and try to make it very efficient.
So also, one of the things about locums is if I'm working from the room, I'm not getting paid. So you want to work at the hospital.
Right.
I don't have children, so I've never understood the take work home. For me, I get if you have kids that maybe you want to go home, spend family time, they go to bed and then I
don't have any kids. I just want to get home and not work.
Right. But I mean, I get why people actually come home and do their work once the kids go to bed. But other than that, why do you want to work at home? I want a separation.
Exactly.
I actually am really good with dot phrases and doing a lot of that. And I usually find that Dragon has more typos than not. I speak extremely quickly when I'm dictating. This is nothing compared to how fast I am then. And but here on this current assignment, the way we get stuff, it's all through all the it's a lot of paper. So I find that I'm dictating the HPI. Oftentimes, some places team conference notes we have to dictate, and so I'll dictate that and then edit it. Other places, as you know, everyone puts in their part, but some places it's no, they tell it to you and you write the whole note. So I dictate more on small things,
right?
But dot phrases are my friend.
No, that makes sense.
And I also find that if I'm not using the dot phrase, I'm actually writing exactly what the dot phrase is. So they can tell me that that's a canned note. And I'm and yet if I don't use the dot phrase, I'm going to type the exact same thing.
Literally, right? It's the same, because I thought of the dot phrase. What advice would you give to those who are interested in locum tenens? So
get in touch with as many recruiters as you can, really, or at least 3 or 4. I mean, again, I have a lot more than that, and they can kind of drive you crazy. Make some hard and fast rules. My rule is email, don't call. You can text me or you can email me. I'm not answering your phone call. unless we've agreed to it. Because they'll call you all day long, all day, at any point. Doesn't matter if you're seeing a patient or not, they don't care. So if people can't follow that rule, I'm not interested in working with them. They make a lot of money off of me, so they have to abide by that. My good recruiters don't do that at all. They're really good about it. So you want to have that. You do have to make what is your important things for that early on. And then you got to be flexible and be willing to go places. I have now been to 48 out of 50 states, not all for work, but everyone's always like, where do you want to go? And my answer is like, I'll go anywhere. Still haven't been to Alaska and Michigan, so I really want to go to those two. West Coast is nice because I live on the West Coast, so I don't have to travel so far. But, this year I've worked Oregon, California, Oklahoma, West Virginia, and a couple different spots in Rhode Island. So, just got to be willing to go and do stuff. Flexibility is also key. I've actually been turning some stuff down this year because I just can't work all this stuff that people are asking me to work. And you do have to know your limits. I last year accidentally booked myself for 42 days straight with working every weekend. And everyone was like, so what are you doing on your weekend off? I said, well, I'd love to tell you I'm going to do something fun, but probably I'm just going to sleep. Which is exactly what I did.
Well, let's open it up to our audience here for some questions. So Ranjiv Chabra asks, how plentiful are locum positions in major cities?
So major cities often don't need the people as much because people want to live there. So I'm originally, as I said, from Oklahoma. I have had jobs at one hospital in Oklahoma City, another one is Ast. I've also worked in Norman, a couple places in Tulsa, and some smaller towns like Enid and McAllister. So, but it's not as likely. Like I live in Portland, Oregon, haven't seen any locums in Portland itself. I've worked 120 miles away. They are occasionally there, but not very often. It's more often you're going to go somewhere smaller. Norfolk, Nebraska, I worked a 7-bed unit. So wow. Just sort of depends.
Yep. Let's see. Any other questions? Let us know. So you mentioned some of the cons. What are some of the pros of doing locums?
I love it. I love the variety. I love the flexibility. I get to see parts of the country I never would have seen. Again, Norfolk, Nebraska, Sumter, South Carolina. I'm in Princeton, West Virginia. Again, I summered in Newport, Rhode Island. So get to see lots of different places. When it's not COVID, I meet a lot of interesting people. I joke about locums life being glamorous in a good and bad way. Last year, I got to Charleston, West Virginia, and there was a sign that David Crosby was going to be doing a concert like 2 days later. And I was like, oh, wow, there are actually tickets to this small intimate theater to see David Crosby. Like almost anywhere else, it would have been sold out months ago. So I got to do that one night. And then the next night I was walking in the mall to get some exercise, just kind of got to go with the flow but lots, and I have so much flexibility. My recruiters say that I'm a workaholic, and as far as locums goes, I do work a lot, but I also have a lot more time off than pretty much any other doctor.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. You have, more time off than someone working a regular job. You just maybe working it more at a time, and without time off in between. So
I'm getting ready to go home, and I'll have 2 weeks off, and during my 2 weeks off, I get to do whatever I want.
Nice.
It's like a vacation.
Yeah, and granted, I haven't taken as many vacations because lately I'm just like so excited to be home when I'm off. I mean, pre-COVID, we were actually going to go to Paris in March, and then obviously that didn't happen. But I was taking off a nice chunk of time so I could do that and then have some time at home. And then I got a lot more time at home than I thought I was going to have. Although, my other locum friends and I all kind of joke because we're like, everyone's like, we're so sick of being home. And we're all kind of like, we're loving it. We never get this much time at home. It's great.
Yeah, we have another question that's come up here. So you mentioned how you went to New Zealand. Are there other international locum opportunities? And do you know which countries are highly amenable to visiting physiatrists? So
New Zealand and Australia definitely have some physiatry options. At one point they were talking to me about Guam. UAE has some, although I think they want more long term, but you could probably do like a year or so. I think Ireland is now opening some up. I don't know if they have physiatry themselves, but the company the other day was actually saying, oh yeah, contact us and we'll get you set up. But I'm like, I don't know if I could. I know it'd be a longer assignment. Usually if you're going to go internationally, they want you 6 months to a year because of the licensing and everything is more challenging. I mean, I literally landed in New Zealand and had to go straight to a judge's house to get my license finished.
Oh, wow. Neat. All right. Any other questions out there?
Let us know. I think it's just such a cool, if I didn't have my position, I'd probably be interested in something like that for sure.
You know, I considered it straight out of residency, and one of my attendings said that he didn't think that everyone could do it straight out of residency, but he thought I could. I didn't at the time. I do think having had a little more experience probably was good, but I don't think it's 100% necessary. As I said, I had such a great first job that they were so supportive of me, but also they'd actually ask me for advice, but obviously they were helping me more than I'm sure I realized. So looking back on that experience, I feel like I probably could have done it right away, but it was also nice to actually have colleagues that did physiatry too right away instead of just jumping in. But it's also a great way to find the right job for you, especially if you don't have a place you really want to go. You can go explore something. And some of these smaller units are fantastic. One of the ones I've worked actually in Charleston, West Virginia, they have 2 docs who are looking for a third, and you could kind of set whatever practice you want. The other 2 are really supportive and like looking forward to helping that. Last year at the PM&R, I was actually like, I'll help you find someone because I'll talk to you. I love this place. I don't personally want to move there, but I love this assignment, and it really would be that would have been a great first job for someone, and may still be available because it's 2 closer towards retirement docs who are willing to be mentors while also letting you explore what you want.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
Very important. If anyone has any other questions, please let us know in the comment section. I'm trying to see what else. And I was mentioned before we started that my friend that did locums and now is working, and she's thinking about going back to locums because she's like, she enjoyed the freedom. She's like, and I made more money doing locums than I am now. So that's also something.
Basically working 26 weeks a year, I can make more money than in many full-time jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm away from home, and I'll tell you, like at one point this summer, they wanted me to work an extra week, and I was trying to like wheel and deal. They were going to fly my boyfriend out, and it was going to be a good deal for me, although I ended up not going. And with COVID, it wasn't going to work for him to come, and he was about to lose it that I was going to stay gone another week. I was like, no, this deal includes you. On a rare occasion, I've gotten him flown to where I am, like for a holiday. But it's also hard for him that I'm gone a lot. I think, especially again during COVID when he can't see our friends either. So he's home alone. But I mean, that part's tough, but I was doing locums when we first started dating 7 years ago. So we've been doing it for a while.
Part of the package.
Like I said, if I didn't have my job and my boyfriend's here, so that makes it very difficult for leave. So that's the hard part about it.
I was texting him. I was like, I got asked to cover, another 11 days in November, but I'm not going. Are you proud of me? I turned it down. I was like, I need my time home and I need it with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're always together. So that's hard.
We FaceTime a lot and text a lot.
There you go. Technology.
Yes.
Well, Benecia, you want to ask the question?
Yes, I will. So we asked all of our questions this guest. If you were not all of our guests this question, sorry guys. If you were not a PM&R physician, what would you be?
So, I mean, I started out in surgery and that was really my love, but with my arm, I couldn't do it. So, we'd have to fix a lot of things and make that possible, but that's what I would do. But that was possible, which is actually how I ended up in physiatry, because I thought, it's not a stroke, it's not a spinal cord injury, but I also understand that people have health issues and they change courses of your life. I mean, for me, I was still able to become a doctor, but I wasn't able to become a surgeon. And so I do understand that frustration and that disappointment that, I mean, kind of all patients have, but especially I think physiatry patients, especially when we're dealing with these big life-changing events.
Literally every day I tell patients that I'm like, I understand that this is completely your life changed for the families and for the patients. So it's nice, I'm sure, to be able to have that relationship with them.
Well, what about outside of medicine? If you weren't a physician, what would you be?
Oh, so I have this random sort of side thing. I wrote my college thesis on the poet laureate of Russia and became very good friends with him. And actually I'm a published translator for him. So I don't know that I could have made that into a career, but combine that and photography. I don't know.
That's pretty neat.
So yeah, I randomly translate Russian poetry.
I love it.
I'm sure you can find a gig.
I actually did some med school in Russia. It was fun.
Oh, how
Wow.
cool.
Thailand. But Thailand, I didn't know the language.
Wow.
Awesome.
Well, I think you definitely have the personality to do this, because it's tough. So, but seems like it's a good fit. Is this something you feel like doing long term until you retire?
Yeah, I mean, I say never. If I find the right fit, that might change. But I don't really foresee that. I really like the flexibility. I like, my idea would be to have a handful of places that I got to go on a regular basis. And sometimes I do, like I'll have a vacation coverage for certain places. And, if I had a handful of those, enough to keep me busy and throw in some new ones, on the side would be great. Because some places I really love to go to. Some places I'm like, that was a great experience. Let's go on. but yeah, I think it works really well for me.
Nice. All right. If we don't have any other questions, we can wrap it up. Is there anything else, Dr. Dalton, that we missed that we should ask about regarding locums?
Nothing. I think, it's just, you got to be willing to, I guess the other real key is that you're not going to go in and change the way things are done. Obviously, if something's not safe, you need to make a change, but you're there to fill in while they're looking for the next person. And sometimes that means doing things not the way you necessarily want to, but that are work.
Mm-hmm.
One place, my IPOC form was a 3-page handwritten form every single time. Oh no, that was the post-admission physician evaluation. But they always had me do one within 20, like on the day after I did the H&P, and it was a 3-page handwritten form. And I was like, yeah, we could actually make this like a sentence or two on the H&P when we had to do the PAPI. And fine, I'm just gonna do this. But let me just tell you, when the new doc comes, he's not gonna be doing this anymore.
Right.
Kind of got to roll with the punches at some places.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
We do have another question. People ask, how can they get in contact with you?
So probably my email is the best way. It's cdalton75@gmail.
Yep. Sounds good.
Put something in the subject line so I know to not delete.
Yes.
You're not a recruiter that you don't know about. Yeah.
Questions about locum. Yes. Very good.
Virtual Physiatry BPM, put that in there so she knows
That's the code word.
from the top.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I think it was super interesting. I didn't know much about locum, so thank you for shedding that light. And we already talked about how people can get a hold of you, but we're still doing our IG takeovers for the residency program. So if anyone's watching that's your residency hasn't been featured, please reach out. It's the perfect time to do it since interview season has started. So
absolutely. Next week, we will have Dr. Jason Miller on, who was our classmate at Baylor. And we were Shenisha, but as a trio, we were known as the Dream Team. Self-named. So
I think I know what our outfits are going to be next week, Benecia.
Oh, for sure.
Don't spoil it, but
yeah. Okay. Yes. The Dream Team. This is our 28th episode we've done. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you can catch all the past episodes on YouTube, IGTV, or Facebook. So yes, please watch those. If you guys have any questions, you know how to get a hold of us. So we will see you next week.
And everyone out and vote if you haven't yet.
Yes, exactly. Show off your pin.
I saw that.
This pen.
Amazing.
Yes.
Please
get your
vote.